Hello everyone, my name is Bao. Today we are going to examine the case of Exxon Corporation and the lack of mission statement. The topic will focus on responding promptly and forcefully to a major problem or crisis in the operations of a business firm. This example covers the need for the combination of immediate and forceful action. I would like to introduce our team. We are Bảo, Quang, Đức, and Minh. Now I will provide you with the overview of the case. On March 22nd, 1989, the Exxon Valdez, an oil supertanker operated by Exxon and under the command of Captain William Murphy, left the port of Valdez, headed for Long Beach, California, with 1 million barrels of oil on board. Later on, Captain Murphy turned over command to Captain Joseph Hazelwood and left the ship, taking for granted the fact that he had smelled alcohol on the breath of Captain Hazelwood. Immediately after Captain Hazelwood assuming command, his requests for permission to alter the course to avoid large chunks of ice were granted. After setting the automatic pilot, he then turned over command of the vessel to third mate Gregory Cousin, who was not licensed at the time and thus unqualified for such responsibility. Shortly after midnight, on March 23rd, the lookout, who was out of position at the time, was slow to spot the obstacles on the way. Due to the automatic pilot, the course of the supertanker could not be changed manually, and as a result, it collided with Blight Draft, a well-known navigation hazard, ruptured 8 out of 11 cargo tanks, and spilled 11 million gallons of crude oil into the pristine waters of Prince William Sound. Within hours, smaller tanker vessels arrived in order to offload the remaining oil. Unfortunately, the cleanup effort was hindered by an inadequate cleanup plan. These plans outlined how an oil spill would be handled, including provisions for maintaining equipment such as containment booms and skimmer bows. The plans also called for a response team to be on 24-hour notice. Unfortunately, the plan was good on paper only. A spill of this size had not been anticipated before. Therefore, the response teams had been demobilized, and the equipment that was supposed to be ready at all times was either too far away or even non-existent. Next, we will move on to the consequences and then go back to further analysis later. The consequences are considered the worst environmental disaster in Alaska's history and occurred in a very sensitive coastal ecosystem, magnifying the damage. The spill immediately resulted in the death of oil wildlife and significant reductions in tourism, recreational fishing, and commercial fishing. Long-term direct effects of the spill include lingering oil with associated negative impacts on the ecosystem. All these catastrophes is the result of the sequence of causes. They vary from improper position of the captain and improper position of the ship's lookout, improper change of the ship's course, improper use of ship's autopilot, or unlicensed and inexperienced third mate overworked and tired ship's crew, from and to the shortage of on-site equipment, such as recovery patches, recovery booms, and so on. And the shortages of on-site personnel, like the personnel is lack of skills, lack of training, and the most important, they lack of cohesion. All of these, and now we will give you better insight into the case, and everyone please welcome Đức.
Now we will continue to the second part, different standards and varying impacts. In order to understand different standards and define different impacts, I will mention three main parties involved in the case. First, Exxon Corporation, and on Jessica, the pipeline service company. Second, employees on the tanker, and finally, the Alaskan community. For the goals, Exxon Corporation and pipeline service company, they aim for the benefits for the stockholders. They try to increase profit during a financial downturn and avoid fines and penalties. In order to do that, they focus on financial outcomes, reducing investment, cutting expenses, personnel, training, and equipment. When the case happened, they show their apology but no acceptance of responsibility. They believe that no emphasis needs to be taken into account upon technological achievement, employee morale, environment protection, and public relations. Little or no attention needs to be paid to the well-being and rights of their employees and other stakeholders. They only value profits and they plan for profits. For the employees on the tankers, the goals of them are job security, compensation must be fair and adequate. Next one, clean, orderly, safe working conditions. They also value equal and ethical treatment for employee development and experiments. In order to do that, they need to be trained to perform tasks under any and all conditions, having proper equipment and inventory, and feeling free to make suggestions and complaints. They believe that greater emphasis on employee morale needs to be taken by Exxon. They respect their dignity and recognizing their work. For Alaskan community, they want environmental preservation. All oil spills need to be contained and recovered. They also require immediate information, full disclosure compatibility of those who involved in the case. The norms of them are investigation, regulation, require potential punishment, seeking restitution, and participating in cleaning up. They believe that they need to maintain the good order of the property they are privileged to use and protect the environment and natural resources. They value the intact. The environment must be kept intact, and those who involved must show their responsibility to the community. For the varying impacts, we can see that all three parties involved have no benefits when the oil spill happened. For the Exxon Corporation and Jessica Pipeline Service Company, the harms are clearly to be seen. Billions spent on the cleaning up effort and paying fines. Exxon's reputation was also greatly damaged because of their reaction to the situation. They did not handle any part of the crisis well. They always making the damage even worse on themselves. They're losing customer and support for their companies, and obviously tons of legal issues. They try to say that they should not be held responsible for the actions of company employees who so clearly violated the company policies. Shifting blame They also accused Alaska and Coast Guard of causing delay in cleanup. They ignore criticism, dismiss interest, involvement of environmental activists. They refuse to acknowledge the extent of problem by abiding legal advice. But they also deny some of their rights. They refuse to speak openly. They were not being able to take advantage of their perceived strengths and weaknesses and their expected opportunity and threats. They refuse assistance from local residents and environmental volunteers to help with cleaning up. For the employees on the tankers, they have to resign. They are being forced to resign. They had to pay fine and commit hours of community service. The employees have been denied many rights. They are being impaired by fatigue, letting exhaustion and intoxication become a routine feeling in the tank. And shortage of equipment, shortage of personnel, the lack of training was a big problem. For the Alaskan community, they had to suffer severe environmental damage along large stretches of the Alaska coastline, and the number of species killing is now counted to date. The local residents also have to face with massive financial losses. Although the reactions of government agencies, oil industry, media, environmental activists, and the public have been shown, it's really hard to contain on the oil spill. After understanding different standards and recognizing varying impacts of the case, we'll continue with the next part, stating the complete moral problems. The moral problem in this case can be stated in one dilemma. If Exxon had had an ethics program and compliance, would this have prevented the wreck of Exxon Valdez? We need to revise some points here. First, the sharp drop in revenues led to internal decisions to cut costs and reduce investment, which in turn brought about obvious shortages of equipment and supplies and clear lacks of personnel training. Employees felt overworked and underappreciated. They said to themselves, if you, the managers, don't care what happens, then we, the workers, won't care either. These were managerial disaster that did not have to happen, and the cause was a lack of trust, commitment, and effort on the individual level, and cooperation, innovation, and unification at the organizational level. Throughout the corporation, no one did his or her job properly. Instead, everyone at the upper level was trying to reduce investment and expenses. Everyone at the middle level was trying to get as best as they could, with no money or improvements or incentive. And everyone at the lower level had simply given up caring. The result was an almost total failure of managerial responsibility throughout the firm. Exxon placed total emphasis upon financial performance and said rarely it places goals along that dimension. The accidents and the total of more than $5 billion lost in fines and penalties could have been avoided with greater emphasis upon technological achievement, employee morale, environmental protections, and public reputation. The basic questions in proposing goals for corporations is whether it is possible to plan for profits or whether it is better to plan for the actions and outcomes that lead to profits. Exxon, in this case, was very clear. They planned for profits and paid the price. Under economic outcomes, the company did not recognize the external costs that were imposed upon the commercial fishers, the native Indians, and the active environmentalists. Under government requirements, the company did not obey the law in the form of spill response contract that had been signed with the state of Alaska. Under ethical duties, the company was not open, honest, and truthful about their actions. They did not select the greatest net benefits for society, nor act in the ways that they would be willing to have all others to act. In conclusion, an ethics program and compliance probably would not have avoided direct or improved cleanup, but having sub-policies with a mission statement, bolstered by proper financial support, performance measures, incentive payments, prohibited procedures, and leadership actions would have made a substantial difference.
Right. Okay, hello all you guys. I will talk with you about the economic outcome of our crisis, what I call the Exxon Valdez oil spill. But first of all, I want to talk with you about what did Exxon do before the crisis happened, before the oil spill happened. Because at the point of time, they see happen of the world have the world behold a sharp force of the oil spill of the oil right all among the world. So to maintain their target, profits, they decided to downsize the personnel. They do not keep up with the technology advancement. They focus incentive only on the senior member. So all that they will be able to maintain their target profits. And when the crisis happened, and when all that thing happened, they avoiding the responsibility. They blame the fault on the captain, the vice captain, the ship crews, and they keep on avoiding the responsibility on their own. And they solve the disaster in facing on finance. They do not have make a press conference, national press conference. They only communicate in that area of the crisis. They don't tell the American what happened to the environment at this region. They keep on paying fine. They keep going to trial and do everything on finance, but show no action or activity of their ethic aspect of the company. And when the crisis come to over, they completely recruit new employees and they fire all of the previous employees. An action and consider to change the whole company, but will rise a furious anger wave among the Americans. And what about Alaska Pipeline Service Company do? Because it's been a while, a kind of long term, there's no specific oil spill that happened. So they decided to cut down on the staff and cut down on the staff of the crisis resolution department, so that they can save the money. They can save some money from the monthly salary of those staff, and they ignore on the position how important the importance of the crisis resolution department is. So that when the crisis happen, they kind of unable to meet the requirement of the crisis. So that called the slow recovery, the slow resolution of whole crisis, and we know in history towards. And now the economic outcome. What is the advantage of the reality that that Exxon can do? What is their advantage of what they're doing? And on hypothesis, if they do differently, what will they get? So in reality, you can all guess they maintain the determined profit during the economic crisis. That although the rise of the global oil price have fallen, but they still somehow maintain the determined profit. By cut down on staff, cut down on personnel, cut down on the technology advancement. So, but if they do differently on the hypothesis, if they have a different strategy, what would happen? The disaster wouldn't have happened at all, thank God. and the workforce would be more enthusiastic and responsible, and they will avoid losing $1 billion because of crisis. This that happens at all, and they will maintain its reputation, and there will more benefits for the stakeholder, for the personnel, for the employee, for the residents of the region. And what Alikas do different, if they do different, of course, they will have enough staff, they will have enough equipment, they will have fully ready for anything happen, so they will recover the crisis, the damage more faster and more efficiently. So what about the disadvantage of what Exxon did, and what is the advantage of what Exxon didn't do? In the reality, as you all know, that's called Exxon a lot of money. They had to pay more than $7 billion in fine, which include 2.3 billion government fine against Exxon, 3.4 billion legal award against Exxon, and 2.8 billion verdicts in a civil trial. And of course, all you honor their reputation grew from the top of merit to the most disliked company in the whole USA. And if they didn't do all the thing, what is their disadvantage? If they didn't do all the thing, which means they will have a different strategy, they will kind of have a significant cost for employee training, technological enhancement, and so on. The share for stockholder may decrease, of course, because they had to pay for the training, pay for personnel, pay for the technology enhancement, had to pay a lot. So the share that for the stockholder, of course, had to be decreased. But this depends on their negotiation between the company board and the stockholder, and of course, it would be more difficult to maintain the targeted profit in that crisis for time. And how about Gleason? They of course they had to they had to cost maintain and train the workforce. They had to maintain equipment.
Hello everyone, my name is Wang. I'm in charge of Part 4 Legal Requirement and Ethical Duties. First, about the legal requirement. There are three main things that violate the law and affect the case mainly. First, Captain Joseph Hazelwood was in command of the ship in ground condition. He didn't properly advise the Coast Guard about the course changing of the ship, as well as the autopilot that he had engaged. And then he turned over command of the ship to unlicensed thirdsman named George Coulson. Though improper behavior of the ship captain as well as the thirdsman lead to serious violation of sailing rules. Next, about the crew member of the Exxon Valdez. They all were tired because of overnight working hours. The reason of this is because there are only 20 persons in the crew. This number is smaller than that required by the Coast Guard regulation and union requirements on merchant cargo ship. Furthermore, a few years ago, Exxon Corporation had restructured itself, cut up nearly 1/3 of the company worker. So 20 members have to do a whole group job. This have violated labor law as well as the Coast Guard regulation and the union requirement. And the next one is Alaska Pipeline Service Company. They didn't fulfill their responsible that it to react promptly to any oil spill that happened. They lack up equipment required as well as labor force to handle the oil spill. They have violated the formal agreement between them and the state of Alaska. Okay, that's all for the legal requirement. Now let's move to the ethical duties. We will talk about the 8 principles in this case. First, principle of self-interest will not meet in this case because there are a lot of actions that will not in long term, such as the captain are drunk when he is in command of the ship. The lookout left his normal post. The third may take control of the ship without any license. Move to the next principle of personal virtue. The captain frequently got drunk and often turned over command to unlicensed Tasman to pilot the ship. However, the crew member didn't report that, so we can consider that they are covered up for their captain. This wasn't open and honest, and wouldn't be feel proud to have reported on the front page of the nation newspaper, so the principle of personal virtue was met in this case. The third principle is principle of religious injunction. Exxon Corporation couldn't be called kind because they didn't care much about the crew member. They said that they have new technology that automate the operation of their tanker, so their crew member didn't have to work much. But in reality, the modern equipment have to be manned and maintained, so the crew members still have to work overtime, and they frequently didn't have enough sleep or can't sleep at all. So the principle of intrusion was missed in the case too. Next, the principle of government requirement were definitely not met in this case because various agreements and regulations were violated. The captain drunk and trained the ship crew improperly, as well as turned over command to unlicensed Tasman. Those are violate the sailing rules. The Alaska violated agreement with Alaska government as they didn't react promptly to the oil spill. About the principle of utilitarian benefit, the crew member on the ship wasn't trained to handle oil spill, and there wasn't enough equipment to do that too. The Alaska also wasn't ready to react to oil spill in time, so the oil spill were out of control and harmed 730 miles of coastline. This shows that the principle of utilitarian benefit wasn't met in this case. Move to the principle of universal duties. Captain Hazelwood turned over command to unlicensed Tasman. This Tasman testified that it was common practice to turn over command of oil tanker to non-licensed officer in the ship. This showed that the captain did not respect his responsibility as well as his crew, so the principle of universal duty was met in this case. And the principle of distributive justice. The Exxon Corporation cut up 1/3 of its workers, then they only appoint 20 members to work on the ship, which was smaller than the Cosgrove regulation. Lead to that the crew members have to work overtime and equivalently going long stretch with little or no sleep. This shows that the principle of distributive justice wasn't met in this case. And finally, about the principle of contributive liability. The crew member of the ship were made to work overtime that they frequently going long stretch with little no sleep, and they wasn't trained to use the equipment in the ship properly. So we can say that the Exxon didn't give their crew member liability to develop and improve their skill. So the principle of contributive liability wasn't met in this case too.
Okay, let's move on to the first question of the case. It is, in your opinion, would this type of company stockholders and the value and mission statements have helped Exxon to avoid the destructive oil spill and delay cleanup that occurred? Or is that type of mission statement applicable only to high-profit pharmaceutical and consumer products firms, not to down and dirty oil companies? Our group's answer is yes, this type of company stockholders at the very end mission statement would help Exxon to some extent avoid the very destructive oil spill and delay the cleanup that occurred, because we believe that beside the mission statement, we need to have financial support, incentive payments, prohibited procedures, and so on. But based on the mission statement that focus on the consumer, the stakeholders, not the company stockholders, all of them will center around the sustainability of the company, and with a well-structured and appropriate mission statement at the very beginning, Exxon would have not given all of their profits to the managers, the upper level of the company, and the fact is that they didn't have the long-term investment for building equipment or human resources or information gathering. So as a result, when the oil prices occurred, they do not have enough capitals to improvise or to cope with the situation at the time. So they had to make knee-jerk decision that was fire almost 1/3 of the company, and the labor who stayed had to handle the amount of the people who left already, and all of them together at a sequence of causes make Exxon fall into the catastrophe.
We believe that if they had changed the mission statement at the very first, like if they follow the Johnson & Johnson mission statement, they put their employee be the first, their stakeholder be the first of their chains, and the stockholder would be the very ends of the chains. They may be, as I say, they will have a longer term investment, and they will have a better human resource management. They will instead of cut down on staff, they will cut down on incentive for the senior member of the company, and do that to the payroll to maintain the human resource of the whole company. And they will pay more attention, more care, more program, which means insurance for the family, for the children, for the employee family, for the employee children. So they will keep the trust, the believing, the enthusiasm of the employees belong to the company. So the employee, when they look at the company, look at the boss, they will be like, oh, that's the one I trust. That would be the one I follow. Not this is the one I work for and he pay me. So they will be more responsible for their task, for their duty. In this case, the captain, he will be more responsible for what he do. Like every time he get drunk on board, he will think, what am I doing? Is it work for what I do for the company? Because the boss treats me so well, and then this is what I do for them. No. So it will lead to the more responsible task indicated in the captain and his group. So let I'll finish this question.
So we will continue with the next question on a study case. One argument that people make about the Johnson & Johnson mission statement is that it is necessary to make people want to follow it. That is necessary to implement it with the measurement and incentive system. If that type of statement were adopted by Exxon, what changes in performance measures and incentive payments would you recommend?
I would say that we agree with this agreement. It is necessary to make people want to follow it. Exxon need to use their profit in a long-term investment, so they will need to manage their profit well, and they have to convince stockholders that they need to accept that their share could be lower in order to keep the company following the mission statement. And they have to implement their activity with performance measure and incentive payment. If Exxon adopt the mission statement, because by this way it can act effectively and keep the company going on the right track.
Well, I also suggest that it should measure performance of their manager based on employees and equipment, so that they can train the employees well, can keep the morale of the worker, they can maintain the equipment in good condition to use whenever it is in need. About the incentive payments, instead of payment based on the profit, companies should use bonus or other benefits to reward their employees, such as lifetime insurance, promotions, and paying their children's school fees, etc.
That is all for our presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment in the following comment box. Thank you very much once again. Có thời gian được